So it's been about a month now since the Speedway Classic was held over at Bristol. And I just wanted to give some of my thoughts and opinions, give the pros and the cons to this event. Let's start off with the pros, just because there's such little of them. The pros definitely are outweighed by the cons, which, I mean, granted, it's their first year. That's why we're making this video, just for criticism. So, as far as the pros go, the overall theming of the event was awesome. The commitment to embracing NASCAR, like we had a stock car represented for each team out on the field. We had like a pit crew doing like a mock pit stop during player introductions. That was awesome to see. We also had all the players. I think there was 2 per truck. They had them doing the thing like they do in NASCAR, where they sit there, stand in the back of the truck, and sit there and wave at the crowd. That was cool. We also had what was called I think it was the home run car, where whenever they hit a home run, there was a Corvette that went around the track. That was cool, as well as seeing the commitment with the uniforms and the merch designs and everything. That was cool, as well as having the show cars of everything out and about. Now let's talk about the cons. Oh boy, is there a grocery list. First off, let's talk about the parking. When I first got in the venue, I thought the parking was okay. It wasn't that bad. Until it was time to leave the venue. Because of how far along we were in the parking zone, we waited for probably roughly 45 minutes to an hour just waiting for the line, because they all started funneling out from where the gate was and funneling out further into the parking lot. So we were like one of the last ones to leave. And then as we were leaving, we pretty much got cut off by one of the venue vans, that aggravated me. So the parking was a disaster. The fan zone, oh my God. Okay, they put out a render. I'll throw it up on screen. Just hyping up this whole event, made the fan zone look all nice and clean, and made it look like this spectacular thing, this big spectacle. It was not at all in reality. I mean, it was so small. Chevrolet had a big portion in the fan zone. Then there was a stage. Budweiser had its own area. Build Submarines had its own area. I think New York Life had a little area, which I actually got to meet Eric Almirola, which was cool. And then each team had their own little designated fan zone little area, their little booth. And then on the outskirts was the merchandise. And then there was the food area. The food area was probably the worst part about it, aside from the actual size of the fan zone. Because these lines were so disorganized, it was so difficult to tell what line goes to which specific food truck. And I think at one point there was lines that were intertwining with each other. It was that disorganized. We need to do better with the fan zone. And then there was not much to do in the fan zone, aside from just walking around, because there was a few little booths here and there where you could spin a wheel or do something, interact with something. But I mean, look at the NASCAR fan zones. You got merch all over the place. Heck, at Indianapolis, there was racing simulators. There was a little crash test thing where they had a little dummy sitting in the car simulating what it's like doing barrel rolls with and versus without your seatbelt. Just everything compared to Indianapolis and seeing their fan zone during NASCAR weekend and seeing the fan zone here, which I know that really is not a good comparison, but this felt like there was nothing to do. Please step it up, Bristol. Now, when it comes to the seat labeling, we got the Earnhardt Terrace, the Richard Petty Terrace. Okay, that's fine. But my main gripe, because when you go to Indianapolis, they have on the outside of the zone, it'll say H stand sections 13 to 16, for example. This Bristol has it overhead, but it's so small you can't see it. And then when you're sitting there trying to, because we were in the Richard Petty zone. I had no idea what that was. Fun fact, it's on the exit of turn 4. No, turn 2. Turn 2. Exit of turn 2. I had no idea where it was. And as a first-time guest who had never been there before, I was confused and had no idea where to go because there was an area that was labeled for infield, VIP infield. I figured that if I went towards the track, because that's the way the arrow was pointed, I was going to be led to the infield, and that I didn't have the ticket for that. So I got confused, but eventually I figured it out. So the seat labeling needs to be a lot more clear and more distinct. Concessions, terrible. I mean, they labeled it as Domino's, but it was probably I'd say maybe about a 12-inch, maybe 6-inch pizza. It was cut in 4 slices. It was like, I think it was 10 or 15 bucks. Might have been 20, I think it was 20. But it was so small, and it was okay. It wasn't worth the price. I was not satisfied, but I was also really hungry. Because you know why? They wouldn't let you bring in your own food and drinks. They wouldn't let you bring in your own coolers until Sunday. Because fun fact, the game actually got delayed because of weather. Talk about that again here in a minute. But the reason they let that in after the fact is because they didn't prepare. They ran out of food on Saturday. There was pictures I've seen where somebody had a hot dog without the bun. It was just a hot dog. What are we doing? Like, we need to, that's simple stuff. And obviously, like I said, it was expensive, which is ridiculous because there was not very much food. Not very many options. Concessions could have been a little bit better. Pre-game concert. So they had Tim McGraw and Pitbull headlined for this. Tim McGraw did 99% of the pre-game concert, quote unquote. I won't knock Tim McGraw. Country's not my type of thing. I'm not a big country guy. I'll give it benefit of the doubt. But I was already aggravated and soaking wet from the rain, and he was not very entertaining in my opinion compared to others I have seen. And then, you know how I mentioned how Pitbull was supposed to be headlining as well. They brought him out for the very last song. That was it. No more Pitbull. They did one song together, then the concert was over. You can't be doing that. And then the weather, oh boy, let's talk about the weather. For one, you couldn't avoid the rain. Even when you went under the grandstands, it was still seeping through the grandstands. So there was little patches you could go to not get as drenched. But the only place to escape it was the bathroom. And I'll say this, there was nowhere to dry off. So I was freezing cold. I was miserable. And then they delayed the game forever. I think it was 2 or 3 hours, I think, somewhere around there. And then they right as I was getting ready to head out, I hear them all start cheering from the grandstands because they were pulling the tarp off, finally. And then they announced at, I think it was 9:45 or 10 o'clock, one of the two, game was going to resume. It started raining again, like 10 minutes beforehand, but it was just a light drizzle, so show must go on. We got through the away teams at bat. The Braves. They batted first. The Reds were like 1 or 2 hitters in, or it was still raining. But it got so hard where they had to put the tarp back on. Everybody booed, and then they decided it's postponed until tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. So that should not have been delayed that long. I know it's because they didn't want to give refunds. That's all it was. It's because of that. I know that's exactly why. And then the merchandise. First off, those 2 stands they had, there should have been more. You know why? Because there was not enough of them. Because they were so, the lines were so long for the merchandise that I didn't even want, I wanted merchandise, but I did not want to wait in mile-long lines just to get merchandise. And then I guess some point throughout the night, they ran out of that too. Not to mention how expensive they were, so they probably made their money back on that. But they were, how do you run out of merchandise? So that's just my critique of Speedway Classic 2025. It's their first year. I'll give it benefit of the doubt. I'll give it a solid 5 out of 10. The only caveat, aside from the fan zone or the fan theming and how it was designed, like as far as like having some racing stuff in there and having team stuff in there, the only other caveat to that is how nice the staff was, because when we were walking up, it was already raining when we got there. When we were walking up, one of the employees stopped us and they were like, hey, you guys want a ride? So they gave us a ride all the way to where we needed to go to get scanned in. But I'd give this event a 5 out of 10. Not bad, could be worse. If anybody at Bristol Motor Speedway or the MLB is watching this, take this into consideration. Please use my feedback as, like, take it into effect and do some tweaks for next year, because this doesn't make me want to go back, at least until they get their crap together, just because this was kind of aggravating, because I also had work that Monday morning, so I had to drive 6 hours back home and didn't want to sacrifice being dead in the morning, so I couldn't stay for the game, which that was another reason why I was so aggravated about it being taking so long to be delayed. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Click the video on the end card to watch more of my content. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It does help a lot. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year. But I'll go ahead and see you guys next time.